I think that last phrase said a lot in terms of the need to implement something which has spirit as well as words. And I think that Mr. Milleho will be pleased that the Legal Affairs Committee of the Parliament is getting down to work on this rather quickly and moving things forward. But let's move next to Richard Howitt, who has devoted a large amount of time and many years to trying to get this subject taken seriously, get it moving at European level given the diversity of practice in different countries. And I think he is as qualified as anyone to talk to us today, and we look forward to hearing how he wants to take this forward. Richard.
Thank you very much, and I have been deeply proud to be the Rapporteur on Corporate Social Responsibility in the European Parliament over 3 parliamentary terms, and it's important to say to this audience that what is being planned by our friends from the Commission on reporting is only one element of a very broad-ranged set of actions where we try to add value on CSR at the European level, and that CSR Europe, Stefan and Jan, is a very valued partner to us in that, and I'm very pleased to be here with you. It's also been a privilege in this European Parliament to undertake that work with my friend and colleague Rafael Baldassarre, and I agreed with everything that he just said, which will make things even easier for this discussion, and he will be the main rapporteur for dealing with this legislation. I hope and expect to be an opinion writer, so I will be one of the people shaping the legislation, but looking to him for leadership, and I'm sure he will give that. He's done so already in how he's addressed us this morning. And congratulations to Didier and his colleagues. For several years I've been beating on their door saying to them they've got to come to conferences and meetings with sustainability reporting bodies. And to be very fair to them, they've come and listened and learned, and I hope that shaped the proposal that's come forward, and I've been enormously grateful to all of you. And if there are people in the audience who are not yet convinced about this, this is not about saying what companies should and shouldn't do about responsibility. It's simply saying they should be transparent about what they do, and I really believe that transparency is the key to changing corporate behaviour and improving corporate behaviour in this respect. And because, like David Earnshaw, I'm very keen on transparency, I will say at the outset that I am an ambassador for the Global Reporting Initiative and the International Integrated Reporting Council, which means that I've been in recent years working on global reporting initiatives on behalf of one of the people on behalf of Europe and European interests. And so transparency to you is also an important part of what I must say. And it is important to say that this sustainability reporting, ESG reporting as it's sometimes called, is not new. The Global Reporting Initiative itself, and its chief executive who's with us in the audience, has been going for about 15 years now. There are about 6,000 companies worldwide who are doing this reporting, and it's growing day by day. And here in Europe, France led the way with mandatory regulation for sustainability reporting in 2001, 12 years ago. Michel Toussaint, who's their CSR ambassador again, is with us here today. And there are at least 9 of the EU countries who already have this legislation in the field. If you add in environmental reporting only, then it gets to many more of that. And in a moment we'll hear from Victor Kier from the Danish government, and Victor and the Danish experience has influenced me a lot, and so he'll talk about their experience, but they're 94% compliance by business. The idea that this is unrealistic or impossible or unaffordable or even unpopular is just not true when you look at the Danish example, but I'll let him talk about that because his experience, his country's experience, has very much influenced my support for this proposal. And although there will be some people in this audience who are very expert on this, it is important to say this is in the context of growing global governance on CSR for corporations that's being built. This is not something that's happening in isolation. Many of you will have heard of the UN Global Compact, which is signed up to by countries around the world. It's 10 points of principle. Many of you will know about the OECD guidelines on multinational enterprise, updated only last year. Many of you will know about the United Nations guiding principles on business and human rights. endorsed unanimously by member states in the United Nations and by all of the big employer organisations, the International Chambers of Commerce and the International Organisation of Employers. Many of you will know about the UN Summit for Sustainable Development that had a specific paragraph, paragraph 47, on reporting and supporting government initiatives on reporting, and that a group of friends was formed for that, of governments, 4 in Rio, 2 have been added since. But from a European point of view, France and Denmark being two of those governments. Many of you will know about the International Integrated Reporting Council, IIRC, which has been established for the first time, bringing the sustainability people like GRI together for the first time with the accountancy standard setting bodies worldwide, the big ones, 2 of whom are based in the United States, to stay that within a decade, now less than a decade, the integrated reporting, putting sustainability inside and with the financial accounts is going to become the global norm. Now, against that background, for Europe to do nothing, to sit and do nothing, would be absolutely the wrong thing to do. We need to notice these developments, we need to be part of them, and we need to be shaping them. And that's why this Commission proposal is so relevant as we speak. Indeed, if you go back to the consultation that our friends from the Commission did on this proposal, what it said is that a majority of business respondents said they were in favour as long as it was part of implementing these global standards. And so I believe there's business support here. We also know that CSR Europe itself, and Stefan, I pay credit to you, when CSR Europe came to the high-level group on CSR, what you said is not, oh, we're against this, or whatever some people would assume business might do. What you said is, we want to shape this, we want to help be part of implementing it. And clearly this event is part of doing that today, and I pay great credit. I think you've positioned yourself completely right strategically for CSR Europe. Last week, at the GRI conference, the chair of the board of the GRI said that he wanted this proposal from the Commission implemented without any amendment as quickly as possible. That was slightly too ambitious, probably, but that represents 1,600 businesses who are doing this and want to be doing it, sitting in that conference in Amsterdam. And at Rio, we had the Global Corporate Reporting Coalition of investors. People say investors aren't interested in this. Doesn't affect financial impact. Rubbish. 77 investors representing $50 trillion of asset under management went to Rio to say there should be mandatory corporate sustainability reporting, and they have come out with a position paper in favour of this Commission proposal. So the idea that business or investors don't want this is just not true, and that's an important message for people here to learn. Now, because time is short, I can only really do bullet points about some of the examples elsewhere in the world. South Africa, extremely influential, because when they passed their King 3 proposals and made sustainability reporting a mandatory stock exchange listing requirement, they leapt to the front in the world in terms of numbers of companies reporting. And for people who say, oh, just leave it to voluntary approaches and it will happen, there is very clear evidence, and South Africa would be only one example, that where you have mandatory approaches, then the numbers of companies reporting is driven up many times over, which Didier is your and your Commissioner's aim. We have the Sustainable Stock Exchange Initiative, which is trying to spread this as stock exchange listing requirements worldwide, supported currently by 5 stock exchanges, including Malaysia, for example, including Brazil, if we're looking at the BRIC countries. A new country that's looking at it is Nigeria. So this is going to every continent of the world. In China, China, everyone says CSR in China, it's just, impossible. Rubbish. Look at what's happening. It's now a listing requirement on the Shanghai Stock Exchange and for all state-owned enterprises in China. And last week I was with a representative of the Chinese State Development Bank as well as the Chinese government who are behind these initiatives. India have got what they call voluntary guidelines, but they're passing a law in their parliament to say that companies are mandated to report against them on a comply or explain basis. And they've made it a stock exchange listing requirement in Mumbai, and already the 100 top companies have to report. That's going to quickly being introduced, we know, to 500. In the US, which some people would say is the laggard, don't overlook the Security and Exchange Commission guidelines on environment that brought this broad-based. Everyone knows about conflict minerals and religious freedoms and other human rights and reporting requirements in the US, but look at the SEC guidelines there, and I expect some movement on the United States very, very quickly. And on the International Integrated Reporting Council, the draft framework is out. I was one of the people that helped launch it in 15 time zones around the world 2 or 3 weeks ago, and people are actually invited to respond to their consultation by July. Their representative, I've noticed, is in the audience. Haven't had a chance to say hello to her yet. But I do hope that people here will look at the draft framework and will contribute to it from all of the different stakeholders that we have in the room. Put that all together, and what you see is there is a hive of activity around the world. And so there's a choice here to be made for Europe. Do we just wait and see? It's all too early. Absolutely the wrong thing to do. First of all, there is a competitive advantage for being sustainable, the famous business case, but it is true. And, you know, increasingly, customers, shareholders, investors are going to penalise companies for not being transparent about their sustainability. So to hold off and wait would be definitely the anti-business case. When I put my report, and Mr. Baldassarre put his report through the European Parliament, the key argument I made, and we made, is there will be no economic recovery unless it's a sustainable economic recovery. This isn't unaffordable. If we want proper trust and confidence to come back to European and global markets, this is part of how we do it, and that's how we win the case. And as I started off by saying, we should be shaping these global trends. If businesses are worried about undue burden, then the thing to do is to get this proposal right, get it agreed, and then put it out there as an example to the rest of the world of what we believe is realistic and pragmatic. And I agree with what Raffaele said wholly in that respect. I want to see this agreed. And it will happen, folks, right? Because our reports passed by over 600 votes with 100 against in the European Parliament calling for this legislation. And there are a number of governments that are champions of this in the Council, at least 2 of whom are in the room, and others I know will follow. And it is the right thing to do. Business isn't failing on the environment or society, but the world is. Climate change we're failing on. International development we're failing on. And we're not going to be able to tackle those challenges as governments, as the European Commission, as the European Union, as the United Nations, unless business steps up to help us do it. And this is a key stepping stone to enable that to happen. And that's why it is the right thing to do.